Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining. Welcome to InRhythm Technology Summit for summer 2023. I'm Parag Katkar. I'm the head of consulting practices at InRhythm. And to those who are new to InRhythm, we are a modern product and technology consulting firm that helps large financial enterprises in their digital transformation journeys. And we are proud of our track record of launching more than 100 enterprise products, working for 100 plus teams. Learning and growth, it's a core value for us at InRhythm, and the thought leaders at InRhythm constantly identify the latest trends in the industry. And over past few weeks, we have been hosting our technology summit, which is a series of hands-on interactive coding workshops on some of the latest technology trends. And today we are hosting our iOS workshop in this series, where we will take a deep dive into modernization of iOS applications. And we're going to focus on embracing the latest advancement in the iOS development, especially on the scalability of the architecture, the latest navigation techniques, modularization, accessibility. And I'm really excited for this workshop. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Nadir, who is going to dive into the agenda for today's workshop.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Parag. Yes, we're very excited about this workshop. One of the key things that we want to talk about is we want to talk about how to build a modern application and build it in a scalable format. So starting with our presenters, first of all, I will kick it off, with Parag, and then I'm going to also talk about the modern scalable architecture and give an overview of it. Won't go into a lot of details, but like I said at the beginning, if there's anything that you need, please feel free to comment or reach out to us, and then we can build either lightning talks or create, if it's big enough, we can create another Propel workshop for it. Then Michael Long. Michael has been working with us for a few months now, and I love the way he thinks, and he does a deep dive and understand things at a much deep level. Hamid, one of our passionate iOS developers, and then he's going to go talk about the modularization, and then Bam and Ilya are going to talk about accessibility. First of all, we'll give like an overview of accessibility and then talk about beyond the basics. So with that being said, the agenda, like I said, right now we are a few minutes behind, but we'll make sure that we'll keep it consistent, and we'll give you the right amount of information that's needed. So we'll talk about the modern scalable architecture. Michael's going to talk about navigation stacks and deep linking. He'll do a quick demo, and then we'll have a quick break. And after that, Hamid's going to talk about modularization. And this is where we want to do more of a hands-on code. So we will provide, we provided it on LinkedIn, and I've sent it in an email to GitLabs. It's public, so you'll be able to download it. And Hamid is going to go over how to download it. And then, we'll have a volunteer from one of the Zoom engineers on there, and they'll try to implement what they learned in the modularization session. And then after that, Bam is going to give us an overview of accessibility and beyond accessibility with Ilya. And then Ilya is going to also do a accessibility demo. And then finally, we'll just have a few minutes at the end for doing some discussions. And if there's anything that you want to ask, then we can talk there, and then we'll close it. Okay. So with that being said, jumping into the first item. So again, hello, my name is Nader Karzat. I'm the mobile engineering manager and the iOS practice lead with InRhythm. And I'm excited to be doing this talk with you. So first of all, building iOS apps at scale, right? In our day and age, continuous development and feature growth and fast to market are kind of like the markers of our industry, right? So in order to achieve that, we need to be able to build applications at scale. Well, what would happen if we don't build a scalable architecture? We'll start with there. So first of all, it's going to be very hard to maintain, and it's going to become extremely complex. And it's going to have a lot of tight coupling and require major refactors if you want to make any change. And working as part of a team is going to make it very difficult, cause a lot of merge conflicts. It also provides poor performance bottleneck because there's a lot of dependencies. So by the time you initialize something, you would have to have went through so much initialization just to get to that point. So it will suffer from slow responsiveness, crashes, and it could impact your rating and reputation. So, and slow development time is going to cost you time and money. Well, so here we come in, and we need to think of how to build an architecture. So before we jump into the technical component, right, let's think about it from a different perspective. Think about, when you want to build a house. You build the foundation for a house, you build the plumbing, the power, and all that, but it's associated to a house. So you can build 1, 2, maybe 3 floors, right? But as features come in and you're building on top of it, then you start to tackle the issue of, okay, well, is the foundation going to be able to hold those additional layers that you're adding on top? The obvious answer is no. So that's why we need to think in a modular architecture in order to achieve a scalable architecture. So first thing that we need to do is we need to identify clear modular architecture. And this is crucial. We need to define a clear, consistent definition of what a modular should be. What are the clear definitions of the business side, the technical side, and the design logic, right? Because we don't want to get to a point where we're building a mini monolith as part of those modulars. And at the same time, we don't want to build hundreds of micro modules. So that's key. And the other thing that we want to do is it's preferred if we focus on building scripts that create those frameworks. And the reason for that is that we gain consistency. Also, on top of that, we want to build individual modular frameworks. What's the point of doing that? Is that we're able to reuse it across the application as well as different applications. So instead of having 3 or 4 different applications that perform the same thing, instead of rebuilding them over and over again, then what you would do is you would build a reusable modular framework that's able to go across. This also could be, not just for a feature, but it could be like the networking layer. It could be authentication layer, and etc. And also the beautiful thing about it is, as you have that modular layer, you can also test it independently. And this will allow you to have a fast speed to market that doesn't require building an entire application from scratch every single time. And adding playgrounds to each individual framework, that's going to help you just build whatever you're working on right now instead of building the entire application. It helps you with building, testing, and speed. So continuing on, as we talk about reducing coupling, well, we get to a point, well, how do we make sure that everything works together? That's when we use dependency injection. And I can't stress this enough. The biggest pitfall is the complexity and coupling of components and features. So using dependency injection is a key for the success of this. And this is going to enhance the user experience and then great performance and responsiveness. And it's going to allow you to build much faster. Instead of building the entire application, like I mentioned, you just build that framework itself. So the time to build is very minimal compared to building a huge application. And then building dynamic framework that's easily integrated and does not have a single focus. So just to give a quick, simple example here, right? When you have, for example, a calculator, don't build it in a way where it takes 2 numbers to perform an addition. build it in a way where it takes two numbers to perform an operation. That way it can scale, it's more dynamic. And also you need to build a center of excellence around modularization. It's really important that, I always say this, that if we build something that's great and another team that builds something that's great, but those two great products don't work together. So it's crucial that we build something that works. So this is why we need to build center of excellence and gain consistency and scale it across all teams so that all teams understand what are the design patterns that you need to follow. What is the definition of a modular? What are its content and all that? Continuing on, building the right foundation, you need to have clear requirements and just focusing on what is current, but also what could be in the future. That way you'd be able to understand what you can build and what you should build. And then using the latest and greatest technology. This is something that's really important. A lot of teams, they're so focused on delivering features that they forget about tech debt. And, as Apple comes up with new innovative technologies, then we're not able to leverage those because we have so much tech debt. So we need to be focused on removing that tech debt and starting to focus on some of the latest technology. Move from Objective-C to Swift and UIKit SwiftUI. Start using some of the newer technologies like async, await, and combine. The navigation stacks and then navigation split views in iOS 16. And then also we need to define a clear architectural pattern that's followed across your application. There are some cases where you might follow different design patterns. As long as it's consistent, then that in certain areas that should be fine. But the one thing that's key is that all the teams understand what's happening and that those two patterns work together. Continuing on, we need to work on limiting third party. Apple does provide us a lot of really strong and strong frameworks that you are able to leverage off the box. But there are some things that they don't provide you, and you have to do some work in order to capture that functionality. And that's fine, because having third parties is going to, well, first of all, you have to constantly keep it updated. There could be some bugs that you can't tackle unless the owners of the framework fix it. And as you grow and have so many third parties, maintaining them is going to be a nightmare. So, not saying don't use any third party, but limit the use of third parties. And do not neglect analytics and monitoring, which is the SRE. So it's really important to have those, because understanding what each team is working on and how many people are leveraging each feature, that's key. And at the same time, you want to know that something is failing or an app is crashing before people start writing comments or reaching out to support, right? So you want to tackle monitoring at an early stage so that when you're in production, you know everything that's happening and you're able to triage it and fix it pretty quickly. Localization and consistency. Localization is key to consistency, right? As you scale up and as you want to grow, you want to make sure that you're able to support different languages and different formats, like Arabic and English start from different sides. Like Japanese also goes vertical, right? So we need to take into account while we're designing, as well as having localization for text. And accessibility is one of the topics that is going to be talked about later on during the workshop. But focusing on accessibility early is going to help you save a lot of time rather than doing a major refactor at the end and trying to figure out how accessibility is going to work. And usually accessibility is not always accounted for. And there's a lot of items that we can help, people with some disabilities, such as, like color blindness, in some cases, or not necessarily just color blindness, but not being able to see the right colors. So if you're focused on providing data using colors, that might not be the most ideal situation, because if someone can't see the color, then they won't know the difference between red and green, right? Also voiceover and a few more. And also at an early age, developing CI/CD pipelines are crucial, right? Manual work is a pain. It's, repeating it over and over again. It's just draining, exhausting, and it's prone to errors, right? Versus, being able to, or just script something and, create a framework or run tests, and everything being automated. So automate everything you can automate. There are some things you can't automate, but everything that you can, stay focused and automate those. Static analysis tools, that's also one thing that's very helpful. It can identify complexity, tell you that you're writing code that's too complex, and it can be divided into much simpler and much easier way to build things. Also keeping the styles and the design. So that's actually another area that's really important. And you can add it into the PR pipelines, and then if it doesn't meet the certain criteria in the agreement for the team, then you would block it. And then, finally, documentation and knowledge transfer. Those are two key things that need to happen, right? Because again, if we have 5 teams working together and one team just driving everything, and then the other 4 teams don't know what the other teams are working on, even if there's 5 perfect teams and they're all working on the best product, it won't work together. So we need to make sure that knowledge transfer does happen, regardless if they know the topic or not, but the context of the application, that's the key. And then Apple does provide a lot of really helpful things, such as instruments. Instruments is really key. So you can determine memory leaks, the battery usage, and a million other things. So it's really important for you to use instruments occasionally, or at least every pre-release, just to identify that, nothing that is happening under the hood that you can't see is happening, and then you don't release it, and then it starts to, being used by so many different people, and then people start noticing. So using instruments is an early indicator of catching issues. Testing, that's we can talk about that for multiple workshops, but testing is so important. And we want to, but the key is focusing on test coverage and not code coverage. Don't focus on this line being covered. Focus on the functionality that this line is trying to do is covered. And finally, just build the right PR process that is going to ensure that the code is clean, and you don't get anything that is going to disrupt the the overall architecture of the application. Caching mechanism, that's also important, especially in big applications. And sometimes when a call is an expensive call and it's going to take a few seconds to reach, you don't want the user to just be looking at the screen at the loading spinner, right? So cache a lot of things. You can have an indicator that they are partially outdated data while you're making the call. So once you get it, you can update it. Creating a networking layer that can be used, and app thinning, that's also super important. You can make sure that you can downsize the application. Now, for the most part, these are like fun images where it kind of simplifies and visually explain what I just talked about, right? Where if you look at those in the modularity perspective, right, you have two different pieces of Legos here. And what happens is, even though they're two independent ones, but they fit together, they work together. This is what modular is supposed to be. Independent, but they can work on top of each other and work together. Reusability, just going through the piece of paper, right? Well, that's one-time use. I mean, you can say that you can erase from the pen, but it is technically a one-time use versus the board. You can write and you can erase and you can use it consistently, right? Maintainability, a coffee cup, a paper coffee cup. Once it's done, you throw it away. But a glass cup, it can last, multiple times. You can keep going. And it's also, you can drink water from it the first time. You can drink coffee from it the second time. So that talks about maintainability. And then finally, expandability, right? Where, you have, pieces of Lego, and then you can add pieces on top of it. You can scale it. You can add more features. You can add more functionality. And it can continuously grow, right? But at the same time, each one of those individual layers is separate, but they can all work together and they can become this huge application, but you can still take them apart in each individual ones.
Hello, hello, hello. So we're going to be discussing, as you might be able to tell from the big title card right here, SwiftUI navigation and deep linking. And part of this is going to be basically a discussion of some of the things that Apple has added to support navigation in SwiftUI 4 and iOS 16 and later, and how we can use some of these new tools to our advantage. So we'll discuss what it is. We'll discuss a few of the benefits. We'll dive a little bit into deep linking. I've got a demo with some code where you can actually see how it works, and then we'll wrap things up. So, as I said, Apple introduced a new version of navigation for SwiftUI, but in the old application and old SwiftUI navigation in 13, 14, 15, everybody's done this. We have navigation views, we use navigation links. So if we have a code that displays a list of items, we have a navigation view that's wrapped around a loop here that we're going through and getting a bunch of accounts. Each one of those has a navigation link. And when I tap on one of those navigation links, it pushes an account detail view onto the stack. We go to a new screen. Everything's cool. Everything's happy. But as of SwiftUI 4, Apple now recommends that we should use a navigation stack and not a navigation view. If you use a navigation stack, we use a different parameter for navigation link value, to push our value onto the stack's navigation path. And then we use a new modifier called navigation destination to handle it. That looks pretty much just like this. We've replaced navigation view with navigation stack. Our navigation link now basically says we're going to take the value, and if they tap on this link, we're going to push this value onto our navigation path. When that happens, the system goes and looks for a navigation destination that can handle that type. So if we push an account onto our navigation path, then it's going to hunt for a navigation destination that can handle that type. And if it does, it says, hey, here's the value that was pushed. Give me the view I should navigate to. And we create it and return it, and we're off to the races. So within the navigation destination modifier, all we've done was really change where the destination view is created. So in the old way with navigation view, we use the destination parameter to create it in line with our code. And now we've just moved it off to a new modifier that handles that type. It's just gone from here to there. Now, that doesn't seem like a big change, but it does have a few benefits. One of those benefits actually comes down to performance, and that performance is when you go through each one of these things and you create a navigation link and that has a destination, that view is actually getting instantiated every time that link is referenced or created. So if I've got a screen that shows 20 navigation links on it, it's actually created 20 navigation or account detail views to process that. And it's actually created it more than once, because if it's inside of a list, it's probably getting handled or called to create those things more than once. With a navigation destination, however, that value is only pushed onto the navigation path when it's created or when it's tapped on. And so our destination is only created when it's needed. And that can help our performance, especially if you're doing things like you're trying to create a view model inline and pass that to each one of your views. Not a great technique, but I've seen that done a lot. So we have one additional benefit that we get using navigation destination, because that lays the groundwork for some interesting behavior. And that behavior is actually deep linking. So as you're probably aware, deep linking lets the user click on a message or something in an email and navigate to a specific location in the application. So if I have a link that says my app accounts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I can go to some place in my application that displays the account 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's handled kind of the same way for universal links and application icon shortcuts and widget actions and so on. So how does that work? How does that help us? So every navigation stack has an associated value called a navigation path. And that's basically just an array of all the places that we're visiting in our navigation tree. So in the previous example that I showed, we didn't provide one of our own, so navigation stack created one for us internally. But if we provide our own, then we can get some nice benefits going on here. So I've got a class here that I created called navigation stack router. That's an observable object. And it contains a single published value that is a navigation path. And if I go back to our view that we did before, let's just say that we're going to get this thing out of an environment object, just to make it easier. So if we go to our navigation stack, we can now say, don't use your own path, use the path that we're going to provide. And that's a binding. So when the user navigates forward and backward, that our path gets updated. So that's getting us pretty close. So let's look at what happens, say, if we want to handle like open URL. So we put a SwiftUI modifier out there called open URL. And when that's called, whenever the user types one of these things and or clicks on a link, we're going to ask our router to handle our open URL. So that's on our navigation stack router. So basically, we are going to look at that URL and we're going to say, hey, if that URL has a prefix called account, we're going to get the class path component, or an example that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we're going to see if I can create an account from that. And if I can, I'm going to take that account and I'm going to push it onto our navigation path. Well, when you do that, that triggers navigation destination, our handler, just as if the user had clicked on whatever navigation links earlier. And that's going to send the user down to a new screen showing our account detail for that account. So that gives us pretty complex deep linking behavior for free. Well, I mean, not quite free, but it's very little extra effort because we already had the new navigation within the app. We already had to provide a destination view. And so this just lets us piggyback on top of it. So I'm going to clean up this code a little bit and remove the extra stuff we added just for a demo and let you look at this. So this is really all of Vue needs to do. It basically says, hey, I have a for each list. I'm going to walk through my accounts. Here's a navigation link. If they click on it, put the value at the navigation stack. If they do, here's the view that you should display when they do that. It's pretty simple and it's straightforward. So we moved some of our complexity out of that view, so it's got to go somewhere else, and that view is going to go into our parent. So I'm going to make things a little more complex and go from a single view to more like a tab-based layout. So if I do that, that means I'm going to want to be navigating within the tabs. And that means that each tab is going to need its own navigation stack and its own navigation stack router. And so our main tab view is going to own and manage all these things. So if you look at this code, I've got a tab view, and my tab is bound to my selected tab in my view model. And then I've got a view that is basically my view that I'm going to navigate for that tab item. And I've got a modifier that I've added here just to make things a little cleaner. But basically, this is saying that we're going to take our view that we have here, we're going to wrap a navigation stack around it. We're going to use this router that we're passing in for it. And that's going to let us handle our navigation. Our other tab does the same thing. We've got another view. We've wrapped the navigation stack around it, and that's using a different router. And finally, in this example, we've moved our open URL handler to here. And if our user clicks on a link or whatnot, we ask our view model to route that URL. So since we've added tabs, our navigation stack and navigation path are only part of what we need for a true deep linking experience. The problem is that if we're going to do a deep link in our new application, we first need to switch to a specific tab and then append the correct value to the path associated with that tab's navigation stack. So how do we solve that? Well, this is a coding demo, so we're actually going to go look at some code. So this is pretty much what we had before. So I have my demo app, and this code is available in the repository that's associated with the workshop, so you can go download it, play with it. But I have an enumeration for tabs, one for accounts, one for settings. I've got two tabs, one for accounts, one for settings. My tab view, like we showed before, links to the selected tab on our view model. We've got an accounts list view, which is what we see here. We've got a settings view, which is what we see there. And each one of those is wrapped inside a navigation stack. And the code for that is very, very small. It's basically just taking the navigation stack, binding our router's path to it. And we're also just taking and putting our router on the environment so we can get it downstream for some other cool things we can do. So our accounts list view, well, we've just pretty much seen that. That's basically a view with the list, with the navigation link. We push account value on there. We have a handler for the account type. And if that gets pushed, we have an account details view that we show. And that kind of looks like this. The same thing if we go down the other side of the fence. We have a settings view that basically walks through all of our settings that we have, which is an enumeration. Our navigation link pushes that enumeration value onto the navigation stack. and we've got a navigation destination handler for settings. So if we see one of these things, create the destination view, which is this guy. So if we go back to our tab view, and if I need to stop and somebody has a question, just for like raise your hand or something, because I can do that. So we have an open URL handler, and we ask our model to handle the URL. Where our view model is actually fairly simple. We've got a selected tab that we're binding to. I said before that we have a navigation stack router for each tab. And so we have a dictionary that's got a router for the tab. And we've got our open URL handler. Now, in order to clean up our code a little bit, what I've done is I've taken each of our possible destination route handlers, and I've sort of broken it out into its own little protocol. So I've got an accounts URL handler, and I've got a settings URL handler. So when the view asks the view model to handle the URL, we go through our list of handlers, and we see, basically ask it, here's a URL. Do you know how to handle it? If you do, return me a route. If you don't, I'll go to the next handler and find out if it can handle it. The URL handlers are pretty straightforward. That's kind of the code we kind of saw before in our previous example. If my URL path has a prefix for accounts, then we're going to handle this. And then if I can create an account from the ID passed in the last component, then I'm going to return a route that basically says, go to the accounts tab and push this value onto that navigation stack. If I can't make out a value, if my number doesn't make sense or I don't have that count anymore, then basically all I'm going to do is say, hey, just go to the accounts tab. So if I handle this, if I return that route, I dispatch it, and basically all we're going to do is say our selected tab is the route tab, and if I have a path that was given to us, then update the router for the tab with the new path. So just to see that as an example, if I go to accounts 111, that's a navigation link. If I go to accounts 222, then we've changed to a new account. If I go to settings, then we can switch to our settings tab. And if I want to go to, let's say, settings A, we can, oh wait, it didn't go anywhere. Oh, you know why it didn't go anywhere? We haven't told it to. So my URL handler. So our handler basically said, just look for the prefix of settings and told it to go to the right tab. If I add the code to take the last component, change that to a raw value for settings, then I can say, go to my settings tab with this value. And now I go to settings A. So again, all of our existing views had, I mean, we had to have navigation. We had to say, the user clicked on this link, we want to go to this view. This sort of lets us piggyback on top of these things and get some fairly sophisticated behavior fairly for free. Now I'm going to show a couple other things here real quickly. So on my accounts detail screen, I've got another navigation link down here where I'm putting a value of accounts legal view link on here. And so I've got a handler for that. And so if I click on that, it goes to account legal view, which is basically just some fine print. But I can also do this not just within the view, but I can also do this programmatically. So I've included my router in my, I pulled my router out of my environment here. So if I say router.append the same value, then basically I can trigger navigation just from a button press. Or I can trigger it as an action from, say, after you saved information to a server or whatnot. Similarly, I've got a back button, but I've also can put a done button here and tell it to go back programmatically. And that pretty much just looked like I grabbed my router, I told my router to pop or remove the last value on the navigation stack. So I think that's most of the code. So to wrap things up, Apple gave us navigation stack, and we can see how we replace a navigation view with the navigation stack. We can place our navigation view destination with navigation link value. And we can use the navigation destination type modifier to grab those values and provide the views that we need to navigate to. So we can also take this existing navigation structure that we've added, and when we provide our own navigation path, we can manipulate that path and accomplish some deep linking behavior. We demonstrated OpenURL, but pretty much the same sort of thing can be implemented for handling NS user activity or any other event type. We basically extract the value that we need, we create a route, and we dispatch it. We've also demonstrated how you can use the same views to do programmatic navigation. So if you append a value to navigation path, that's the same thing as a user clicking on it, and it'll go to where it needs to go. If you remove values from it and pop back, you can go back to previous views. There's some basically some very fundamental atomic pieces, but they let us get to some fairly sophisticated behaviors. Now, there's a few caveats here. Navigation destination values must be hashable. So pretty much you have to be able to tell them apart. So they have to be hashable, they have to be equatable. Most of the time, that's not a problem, because if you push a view with strings and integers and stuff like that on it, those things are hashable by default. And adding conformance is not that hard if you don't. Navigation destination value types should be unique. So when you're doing that, you should consider using custom structures or enumerations, sort of like I did with settings. If you create a bunch of navigation destinations and you make each and every one of them a string, SwiftUI is going to have a hard time figuring out which one of those it should call. And finally, just as one little piece of advice, don't mix and match navigation link destination and navigation link value in the same navigation path. Sometimes you can get some weird results when you do that. So it's best just to embrace the navigation link value and navigation destination and go forward and reap all the benefits. So in conclusion, it's a powerful tool that SwiftUI gave us, and it pretty much eliminates a lot of the need to fall back to UI navigation view. And if you implement it, we can piggyback on those existing mechanisms and gain a lot of support for deep linking and internal application routing. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a question. So I'm just curious, maybe you haven't researched this, but using open URL, have you noticed any weird performance problems with pushing views on the stack using open URL? Because I could imagine somebody spamming the button and then this views being stacked upon the stack. Have you observed anything around that?
No, and partly of the way this was implemented, I mean, basically, the handler for those is effectively, let me see where I can show that. When I take this value and I push it on there, we're basically creating a new navigation path and assigning it.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't push 15 values onto the same path because it's all going to end up generating the same, go to the accounts tab and push this one value.
Okay, exactly. Cool.
So, Michael, thank you for the awesome presentation. Now, next up is going to be Hamid, who's going to be talking more about modularization. And then, like I mentioned at the beginning of the chat, I did post in the chat the GitLab links. So if you're able to access it, please download it says, one second. Yep, just download the code base modularization, and then you'll be able to work with Hamid. So with that said, Hamid, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to talk about my today's topic is modularization of code base. Technically, I will be explaining more perspective of the iOS code base, but generally it stands for like almost any kind of software development. Let me make a little bigger. Okay. So the contents I will be covering our introduction to modularization, what it is, then importance in software architecture design, what's the level of importance that modularization holds in overall software architecture design, how to achieve modularization in iOS, modularized e-commerce platform that I will be giving an example of. Then overheads, what is the cost of modularization? There are the cons as well. And then a simple components architecture diagram of an e-commerce platform that will be explaining the modularization very well. And then eventually we will get into live module creation or a framework which I'm going to show right after the end of this presentation. Starting from what is modularization? The process of separating code base into different pieces or independent components, we call them modules. And the process of doing that is called modularization. Those pieces or those modules are interchangeably connected to each other. There is a separate functionality of each and every module, and they're fully decoupled. That's what the overall purpose of modularization is. So they are completely decoupled. There should be least of the dependencies on each other. Importance in software architecture design. So I would be explaining modularization more with the perspective of designing and architecting a software, an application, or a system, anything you can consider. So the biggest benefit that I see of modularization in a whole software architecture design is reusability. You don't need to write components or code over and over again. Just create a reusable code, create an independent module that is fully decoupled and can be reused into any other module, any other code base wherever you are needed, or any host application. Workload handling. when you're creating a modularized based application, you can definitely dedicate each module to the teams you're working in. Each team can own the responsibility of a separate module, scale it, maintain it, debug it, and integrate it. Efficient debugging process, when you have an independent code base and independent module, the overall process of debugging gets a lot more easier. Debugging, I feel like, is the most challenging thing, especially when you get stuck into something. So when you have an independent module, an independent feature, or an independent foundation framework, you can easily independently debug it and then reintegrate it back into wherever it's needed. Maintainability, easy to maintain. You can easily test it. It's easy to scale it. You don't have to go through like each and every file of the overall software application you have. Just look into your into your specific module that you have, that you're responsible of, and just maintain it. And that way you can easily create semantic versions of the modules and integrate it back into the system or the app you want it to integrate into. Scalability, very easy to scale. Anything that you write independently that is decoupled, that's always get a lot more easier to scale it, add a new code, refactor existing code, so on. Robustness, when a module is independent, decoupled, it's super robust. This very easy to track the bugs into that specific code base. You don't have to go everywhere, and definitely write a clean, scalable code, which is eventually going to be robust itself. Moving to how we can achieve it. I explained like what modularization is and what is the importance in software architecture design, but how we can achieve it in iOS specifically. So the common way to create modules of a system, when you have a system, when you have requirements, the first thing you do is to architect that system. Once you architect that system into different modules, now the next job is to create the modules. And that's something technically you do hands-on. It can be achieved in iOS using dependency tools that are already there by Xcode. You can use Pause, you can use SPM, you can also use Carthage, I think. Yes, that's another tool as well that you can use. But I will be more focusing in this presentation on Pods, including the demo that I would be giving and involving the audience. Sharing, so basically you can create, you can divide your overall code base into different layers. You can create a foundational layer. Foundational layer would be responsible for having any core code that you can share among other layers. Commonly feature framework layer, where you're going to have all the feature modules. You can share code from foundation into the feature layer and then move it upward towards your host app, where you will eventually host all of your dependencies. Moving to an modularized architecture of an e-commerce platform. As I mentioned, this is simple, I would say. You have a foundational layer where you have foundation and core framework that contains all kind of your core code base, including from your date converters to your integer to string converters, any kind of typecasters, all that kind of stuff. Then you would have a user interface framework where you can host all your user interface resources, including your styles, color styles, even create some views, buttons, any kind of views that you can create and reuse them into your feature layer. You will do that into your e-com user interface framework. Then networking, anything related to your networking layer would go into your network framework, I would say, network module, where you could have your sender, request maker, request senders, and anything that's related to making network calls would go into the networking layer. So foundational layer has to be lean. Only the reusable code that can be reused into the feature layer should be in foundational layer, and nothing related to features should be in foundational layer. Moving to the feature layer, this is as I mentioned, like common sample of an e-commerce platform. You may need authentication. I would say you would definitely need authentication. Your login, sign up, two-factor, anything, put it into your feature layer. User accounts, make sure all your user account management is in a separate framework, which is another feature framework. Vendor management, any code related to the vendor should go into the vendor management. So when you need to scale it, remove it, you should be easily add or refactor your code base in an independent feature framework. Product data, anything related to your product search or any product data that's coming in, you can perform into the product data framework. Shipping, anything related to your e-commerce platform, any kind of shipping, auto tracking or anything you can put into the shipping module, which is going to be an independent feature framework. Then you have returns and refund, payments, settings, and more, and so on. That way you can scale your architecture to as many as feature frameworks you want to create or modules you want to create. And similarly goes for the foundation layer. If you want anything that needs to be a separate foundation code base, you can create a separate independent module for that as well. Third party, very common. Keep your third party, all the dependencies separately total. If you need tracking, you need analytics, digital marketing, or any other framework that you think it's linked with third party, don't integrate that into your foundation or feature layer. Keep it totally separate, and only you can integrate it, but don't really put into your feature or foundational layer frameworks. It has to be an independent code base. So later when you need to kick out something or remove something, it should be a lot more easier for you to manage your architecture and scale it. Next, overheads. I've gone through the benefits, importance, and everything, but definitely there is always an overhead as well for everything that you do. So modularization, the overall modularized code base is definitely has set up independent components that are hard to manage. That's a one thing. You need big teams, you need high skill set, the right domain knowledge to manage all of your individual code bases. One module will perform one function and achieve only one goal. Early stage integration testing can be tough, because if you have a monolithic code base and you are modernizing it, definitely it's going to be hard to integrate your independent framework into your host applications, which is technically a monolithic code base, and debugging challenges as well. Moving on to the component architecture. So I've shown all those sample frameworks, but I've not put everything into this architecture. Since this is the one we have in our demo, I want it to be more realistic, that can be done within the limited time frame. So if you look at the diagram, it's a completely modularized architecture of an e-commerce platform. So starting from the lower portion, the foundational layer, is networking, e-commerce user interface. As I mentioned, what's network going to handle? All the networking code should go into the network framework. E-commerce user interface, all the UI resources should go into e-com user interface. And then you have the feature layer, where you have authentication framework that's technically using any UI components from e-commerce framework, e-commerce user interface framework, product management, and independent framework again, and would also be consuming your foundational frameworks, shipping, returns. So all these three feature frameworks do exist already into the code base. The fourth one is order management. So I kept it as it is, just for the sake of diagram, but I've not created it. I want the audience to get involved, and let's create it live in the session with me and integrate it into the host app, which is the top layer of this architecture.
I can do it. So I do have a repo, which branch? That one?
It should be main. Go to the main. Go to the
Okay.
main.
Cool. Now it works. Let me see. 1 second. By the way, which Xcode you prefer?
Any Xcode is fine. If you have 14.23, that's fine. Any Xcode is fine, I think. Better if you have 14.2 or 3. Yeah.
I have a bunch of them.
Okay, go with 14.2. Yeah.
Okay, cool. 1 second. I just think like how to do it more efficient. The demo. All right, cool. Cool. So that's the repo right now.
Yep. You can open README if you want, side by side.
Sure, I can do it. All right. Where we
No,
going?
not this README. You have to go into the code base modularization folder.
Cool.
It's gonna be another, yeah, right here.
Oh,
And
this
go
repo.
back. Yeah, right here. Yep.
All right.
That's the one you need. Yep. So you've cloned the repo. That's the first thing you have done. You can start from the first step, open Xcode.
Will we open the specific file from here, or
Just open any of these frameworks you can open. Go into Foundation. You can go
Alright.
into Foundation. Yeah, then ecom user interface. Yep. And then open, yeah, workspace. And you can start from here. Just create new project, new framework as project.
so we do
Project. Yep. Look for framework. Such framework here. Yeah.
Yep.
Select framework.
So just to confirm, we will create a new framework, right? For
Yep. Yep.
Cool,
Yep.
cool.
And just to confirm that this is, if this can be interactive, so if anyone wants to step in, give different recommendations or just ask questions, the floor is open for everybody.
Cool.
Go ahead, Ilya.
All right. Let's try so the framework next.
Yeah, we'll name it order management, not product management. Name it order management.
Auto, you said?
Order. Can you go into the README file? There's one you can copy paste the name from there. Yeah, there's a second line. Yep, order management.
Oh, gotcha. Yep.
And yeah, go ahead and save it into your, go to the repository, download it. Yep, go into Foundation.
Foundation.
Sorry, in feature, not in Foundation. Yeah, you're making feature framework. Yep, create, hit create.
Okay, cool. All right.
Yep. So
let's
you can go to the next line in the README.
set up both for framework, body need, body install. All right, let's do that. Let me see. Where is my terminal? So
No, not in it. You have to go into the order management, the framework you created.
yep, I'm gonna do it right now. So hold on. Let's see. It's in the features, right?
Yep.
And it's order management.
Yep.
Pod init.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't have a pod. Any suggestions?
So you don't have pod install. So are you using terminal? You don't have pod install at all? How do you work? I mean, there should be.
I mean, like that's my personal computer, so it's probably
okay, maybe that's why. Yeah, then I think
suggestions to troubleshoot really fast.
no, you have to install first CocoaPods before you proceed with this. Definitely not. You won't be able to proceed without installing a pod. Yeah.
So let's install that. So it's a probably brew.
Yeah.
Pods. Right. I hope it will not take us too long. After that, next step gonna be create pod spec and
pod spec.
Yeah, okay, cool.
You can create a pod spec meanwhile if you want, save your time.
Yeah, sure, let's do that. It's features.
Yeah. There's
Go.
already pod specs. You can take any of these. Go into the product management. Yeah, product management. Yep, but just you can copy the pod spec file from here. Yep. Copy this one and paste in this one. Yep, and now you have to change its name to the order management.
Yep. Oh yeah, my fault.
Yep, now we have to open it.
Yeah, let me see. Let's open it with Xcode. Awesome. Cool.
So you have to change the properties here in your script
Give me
file,
one
pod spec file.
Let's do pod init.
Yep,
Boom. It's done.
pod install.
Pod install.
Yep.
Are we expecting to do like some repo update, fancy stuff, or just pod install?
Just pod install.
Awesome. Cool.
Yep.
Get some pod installs.
Yeah.
Pod spec. Awesome. That works. Let's see
Yeah,
what
now you can. Yeah. So change the property names here. You have to spec name, you have to change in your pod spec file, and anything you have seen product management, you have to replace that file with order management.
All right.
That string, yeah.
Are we keep the library?
That's
word?
fine. That's fine. Summary is fine. That's okay. You can come down and then change the module name.
Author, we'll keep that.
Yeah.
Name. All right. Product
Change
manager.
the path.
Source. All right. All right.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it.
I think you're making a mistake here. It's order management. It's OR, and you're making a mistake in writing the name. Order management.
Because like I copy it right from.
I'll copy from here. What's the framework name you put in? It's the same.
Yeah. Let's see.
Yeah, look at the framework name first.
It works fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's
should
a
be.
typo.
Yeah, there was a typo. Yep.
Order. Yeah. Cool. So let's do everything like the order.
No, don't change it. Don't change it. Just change. Just change pod spec. Yeah.
Right. That's what I do.
Just change pod spec.
So order. 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 All right, let's see one more time. Order.
Save it and you can close it. You can close this file. You can close your, you can close this and open workspace.
All right.
Open order management workspace.
Sorry, what was that?
Open order management workspace. Open the project. The workspace. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And then now all you need is do the pod install.
All right, let's try. So all right. Zero. Do I need to pod install?
Should be, oh yeah, there should be, you have to add dependencies. Can you go into your order management pod file? You have to add dependencies as well. So we can go into pod file. Yep. And you can open any other pod file from product management. You just need to like take the code from there and change the path name.
Right. Cool. So we will use
these two pods. Yeah, that's it. Because you added these two pods in pod spec. So you just need to provide these two dependencies in your.
Right. So let me see. Actually.
Just to quickly pause here. Is everyone following along with this? If okay, I see some thumbs up.
So maybe that
you have to put it above at the top, the target order management due after that. Put it like after use frameworks. Yep, after that. Yep.
Can you just clarify just maybe more why we need the pod file spec and why we need the pod file, like how they
So,
work?
right. So you need the dependency into the actual framework that you built, but you need pod spec when you need to install dependencies off of another framework. For example, you have the product, for example, you have the order management pod spec file. So when you have integrated, when you create pod spec, you gave two dependencies. Whenever you would do the installation from your actual framework, it will read that what are the dependencies available into the spec. So if there are no dependencies available into the spec file, it will throw you an error.
All right.
Yep.
Good.
This is all local management of pods. You can do that remotely as well. So that's where you really need a pod spec file. Yeah.
Cool. So let me see. Right from here, I see that two dependencies was added, which is ecom
Yep.
user.
Yep. Yep. Now select read from disk. Yeah. And you should be good. Can you run that and build it? And make sure it builds. Okay, cool. Now, if you go into your navigator, the leftmost icon, open the structure. Yep, go into pods. Go in development pods. So you have now two dependencies here, which you added into the pod spec. So now if you look at all the UI components, they're already there that we integrated, and then there's the networking dependency as well. There's no code in there for the sake of like modularization. I've not put a lot of code in there. So it fulfills the purpose of this overall demo. Now, what we're going to do next is we have to integrate this feature framework into our host app. So you have to do now the same thing with the host app that is into the app folder.
Okay, let's see. So we do have a in the app
Yep,
folder.
Yep, e-commerce. So first thing you have to do is open the pod spec because you need spec in your pod spec file.
So you suggest to start with the pod spec, right?
Yep, start with the pod spec because you need dependency there first. It's right here, the second one under the file, e-commerce app pod spec. Yep.
Cool. Oh, yeah, right. So with the pod spec. All right. So
yep. You have to add another spec here, which is your order management framework.
Right. So right now, after we create the framework, we'll just follow the like usual steps to add the like third party, right? Like any pods, sort of.
Yep, you can add any pods. Yep. If usually you have a source, so we don't have any third party usually have a remote source. So we don't need source here because we're doing everything locally. But if you have a remote source, usually it's get, you give a get as a source in your pod file.
Gotcha. Cool. So we have feature, order management. All right.
Yep. Now you have to put this at one other place, which is a pod file.
Right.
Yep.
Let me see. Pod file. Cool. So I will. Okay. Let me just copy that first. All right. Cool. So it's going to be order management pod.
That's
So
feature
it's not in the
framework.
foundation, right?
It's going to be a feature. So you have to change the foundation path as well. It's a feature framework. So technically you have to, yeah.
Yep. So it's go from feature to the order management. All right.
Yep.
Anything else?
Looks great. Yep.
Cool.
Now just simply go into your app and do the pod install.
To app, you mean
yeah, the host app, e-commerce app. Yep. Go here.
Right. Hold on. Where we are. Okay, this back. Probably one more step back. We go to app.
Yep.
E-commerce app. pod install. All right.
I think you have dependency added. There's no error here.
Just show it. Cool.
Yep, you have order management installed successfully into it. Now, if you go into your project,
All right.
ecom, yeah, if you open this and look into the pods,
Under
development pods, you should have order management integrated into your host app. So these are all the dependencies you have, all the independent frameworks module into your host app. So you don't have to write code into your e-commerce app. It's just hosting it, and all these are the independent modules from feature and the foundation layers. Yeah, that's it. Just try building it if you can build it. So all I want to know, there's not going to be any screens here, but yep.
Also, I have a question. Are we setting up them as the development pods right now? So they are local, right? Local.
Yep, they're local. They're development pods. Yep.
Cool.
You can host them remotely to the Git, and just your source needs to be added in your pod spec and pod file. Yeah.
So since
it's going to be the same process. It's going to be the same process. All you need is to change the source, add the source actually, if you want to do from remote. So this is one of the screens coming up from feature frameworks, which is a product management. If you go into, yep, you go into content, there's a shopping cart. Now, if you go into the shopping cart.
Do we need canvas, or I can turn?
You're fine. No, we don't need canvas. So you're coming from this actually code base is coming from your product management framework, which is a feature framework. Now, if you scroll down all the way,
try to make it nicer. Yep. Scroll down all the way.
Yep, yeah, you can look. You can go into any of the IR components. Go into the IR button on line number 89. Yeah.
All right.
That's coming from your foundation layer, which is an e-commerce user interface. So you have your foundation layer, the components being reused from foundation into your feature, and your feature is eventually being hosted into your host app. So this is the process I explain how you can modularize an application into your software architecture. This is an example of an e-commerce application, and you can like adopt this approach, creating any sort of system, any sort of software you want to build.
All right.
Especially in iOS.
If I have any changes, let's say inside the framework, what should I do like next with the pod spec? Should I bump it up?
If any, so make the changes and just if it's all local, all you need to do is a change. I would recommend making change into the independent framework. For example, you're making change into e-commerce user interface, make a change and then integrate it into your wherever it's being used, for example, feature framework, and then you have to again install it and update it in your e-commerce app as well. If you have a remote source and there's these all these or a few of these frameworks are independently being hosted, so you have to make change into that Git repository, get a new version from PodSpec, install it wherever it's being used as dependency, and then reintegrate it into your host app.
So to clarify, yeah, okay, cool. No worries. All right.
Yep, that's all. Looks good. Great job.
I mean, we can go like one more time through the pod file and pod spec to just explain what you just said regarding the.
Yeah, you can go ahead. Yeah.
Can you just go create like another one and just
that would be awesome.
When you go into the stats, just kind of do more of an explanation of why this is happening and whatnot.
Sure. Let's see. So let's create one more feature. You said.
Yeah. You just name it anything.
Let's see. We do a new project, which is gonna be up, so it's not the playground. New project is gonna be the framework. We will call it like I don't know what is gonna be. Payment. Can it be payment? Oh, Hamid, you muted. I'm not sure if you say so.
Sorry, yeah, payments. Yep.
Payments. Is it important to be with Perl payments, or it's gonna be like?
Yeah,
payment?
name it something e-com payments, so you avoid any. There can be conflict from any of the payments that Apple have in any of its SDKs. So name it e-com payments.
payments. Awesome. So we do that. Let me see. Yep, we will put it inside our features. Create. Cool. Now let's close that. Close this. We have our econ payments. So now, first of all, we need to set up pods, right? So it's gonna be features. And it's gonna be econ payments. What they need. Cool. Install. No, wait. Install.
Yeah, pod install
Yeah.
to create workspace. Yep.
Oh, right. Pod install. Cool. We get this. Let's copy paste the pod spec file.
Yep.
Awesome. Name. Carefully add the name. Oh wow. It wasn't copied the first time. All right. Cool. Initial setup done. So now we go to the pod spec. Open it with Xcode. Change the names everywhere, whatever it needed. So it's the name gonna be econ payments, summary econ payments library. How big summary can be?
Summary can be anything, just trying to match the wording. That's it.
Yeah, just a couple curious questions. Something like that. Cool. We do need networking and econ interface. Maybe we don't need, but let's just see because
Yep. You don't need any other dependency from foundation.
let me see order management also here. Econ payments. Okay, cool. Save that. So we do like the pod install one more time. No, the zero dependency was added.
You're missing at one place, which is a source for the framework, and that is a pod file.
Yeah, that's why. Gotcha. So pod file. Hold on. Cool. So let's see what we use for the features. Cool. So we do need, yeah, these two to handle the save. Awesome. So pod file done, pod spec done. Now it's supposed to work. And we get two of them. Cool.
Yep.
So now features is ready. We go to app and say that our app also need the payments system, right?
Yep. Payment
So,
dependency framework integration. You have to do the same thing for pod spec and source.
so in the pod spec, we will add the one more dependency, which is, let me see. So one more dependency added. Also, yeah, okay, let's keep it right now. Now we go to pod file and we'll add the path, right?
Correct.
So it will read from features and econ payments. Save that. Cool. Let's go to this app. Here. I don't know. I can make it bit bigger. And do the pod install right now and see if the feature was added. So yeah, the feature was added. Now we can open the app and see under the development path, which is local, that ecom payments as a feature was added. Let me try to build, should build. Cool. Now our app has also payment system, which someone created somewhere there. Awesome.
Yep. Cool. Perfect.
Great. Elia, Amit, thank you so much for the presentation and the demo. So jumping into the next segment, which would be accessibility, where Bam is going to give us an overview of the accessibility, and then Elia is going to take over and talk about beyond the accessibility and do a demo as well. So with that, Bam, the floor is yours.
All right, so let's talk about accessibility. So I've had the pleasure of being kind of an advocate for accessibility over the last year, and it's kind of an important topic. And I could admit in the early part of my career, I didn't know how important it was. So I thought it was best for us to talk about it here. And just let's talk about it from the beginning, you know. So let's start with what is accessibility. Accessibility refers to making applications accessible to people with disabilities when using mobile devices. So anybody with disabilities should be able to use our application. It's important to design products, devices, services, environments that can be used by people with disabilities or impairments. And also, we should avoid common practices that will prevent users from using the app who have disabilities. So that's generally what we're talking about here. We want to make our app accessible for users with any type of disability. So why is it necessary? So we could start with this quote from Kevin O'Leary. He says, the fastest growing cost in American business is compliance. Getting sued is a heavy cost. ADA site compliance helps businesses and public entities make their websites and PDFs compliant. This is a big deal. So if he thinks it's a big deal, I think it's a big deal. And getting sued is a big deal. And that's the biggest of the problems, but also smaller problem is that when people use the app and it's not accessible, you get complaints, you get you know, bad ratings and things like that. So at the extreme level, as a company with an application that's being publicly used, you could face some litigation if your app is not compliant. So let's keep talking about why it's necessary. A survey says 70% of visually impaired people who use a screen reader use it on a mobile device. And on average, 14% of users rely on screen readers to navigate the web. So it is a pretty small portion, but large enough for us to care about it. So, and that includes 7.3 million Americans who rely on screen readers and using the voiceover feature on the mobile app. And so it's very important for us to think about that while we're developing our apps. By prioritizing accessibility, we can ensure that the app reaches the widest possible audience and limit your chances of accessibility related litigation. So this is what we just talked about with, you know, if you're a public company with an application that's used by the general public, we got to make sure that it's accessible. It also widens your reach and builds brand recognition, and it also lower your long-term development costs and improves user retention, because you don't want to have to spend time and money going back and making your app accessible. ADA compliance is pretty big. I've worked in the financial tech industry for quite a while, and ADA compliance has always been a topic. Commercial businesses fall under ADA Title III, and it prohibits discrimination based on disability. That's generally what it means. So when you hear ADA compliance, it means the app should be accessible and able to be used by people with the disabilities. Here's some key considerations. So this is pretty important. We should have bold headlines. We should have header components. I'll talk about that later. Larger fonts is pretty important. we have a feature in iOS where you could change it in your settings, where you could change the size of the font. That has to work properly in your app. Also, extra padding and white space, make sure that components have enough space between each other, and make sure things are not too close to the edge of the screen. Large buttons and tap zones, make sure your tap zone is not too small. And also structured and sequential content flow. And I'll show that a little bit later, and Ilya will get into this also when we demonstrate how the screen reader and voiceover will go through each of the accessible elements. So that's very important. And also the last point is consider the color for colorblind users. We don't want to create interfaces that are reliant on color, because we have colorblind users that could possibly not be able to see the differences of colors. So these are just a few considerations to think about. Next slide. So here we talk about mobile web application best practices, and I mentioned mobile web because even in iOS, on mobile apps, we kind of follow the same standards as mobile web. And also the web content accessibility guide is what we use for our iOS application. So the WCAG was built on these 4 principles, and it's the POUR principles. And starting with perceivable. So these are the way that we design accessibility. It should be perceivable with one of our with either sight or sound. We should be able to perceive what's going on the screen with just the voiceover. So that's the first one, perceivable. The second one is operable. We should be able to operate simply on these elements without some type of complex explanation. And also keep in mind things like using things with one hand or things like that, because not everybody has 2 hands available. Not everybody can also use the app only in portrait mode. So make sure that when you flip it to landscape, you can still operate the app as normal. And next, understandable is pretty self-explanatory. Make sure that the information on your screen is understandable and it's not too complex or confusing. And the last one is robust. Make sure you're thinking intently on how to make your experience for the user as robust as possible and as usable as possible. So these 4 principles are the basis of accessibility. And if you go to the WCAG website, you'll see that all of the criteria is based on these 4 principles. So next slide. Okay, so there's a few tools that we use to audit accessibility. And by audit, I mean just check our own application on what kind of issues that we may have in our app. So currently, I've been fond of events, and it works pretty well. And I'm gonna demonstrate a report. I'll show you guys a report that was created from events. And Events Mobile Flow Analyzer is just an audit tool that will, you can manually scan each screen, and it will give you a report of all the problems. Or you could use the SDK, and you can incorporate this tool during your UI testing, and you can scan each screen and generate a report after your testing is complete. So it's a pretty cool tool, and I'll give you the pros and cons after I show you guys the report. And the next one, Accessibility Inspector in Xcode, and this is, to me, this is the main tool that everybody should be using. So you run your app in a simulator, and you can open up Accessibility Inspector from the developer tools, and you could use the voiceover and select the different components in your app from there. So I think those 2 are the main auditing features. And some other tools that I found, Google Scanner for Ally. That's so Google created this framework. It kind of lives underneath your app, so you have to install it with your app. And also Google Toolbox is another one. It's based on Objective-C, so I don't really recommend it. It's kind of old and it hasn't been managed. I think the last update was 4 months ago, and before that it was 3 years ago. So I just wanted to provide this just in case anybody wants to try it. The last one is the XC UI test for accessibility, and this is just generally talking about UI testing and using accessibility labels to test the app. So those are the main tools that I would consider while auditing your app for accessibility. So that being said, I'm going to show you guys an example of in an events report. I did a few scans of just the automation tool for iOS. This is just the app that iOS provides for automation. It's just everybody has this app on their phone. And as you can see, there's a list of all the elements in this column. The issue type is here. The severity is here. You got a nice description of what the problem is. And also on the far right, you see the WCAG criteria and a link to it. So you can actually see exactly what kind of poor principle that it is referring to. So just a few of these problems that you see here. You see the duplicate name here. So if you have more than one of the same name on the screen, it will create a minor issue for that. Color contrast is another one. So there should be a clear contrast between the background and the color of certain text and things like that. Tappable area, I see a lot of times. Sometimes our default buttons are too small and not tappable. So that's something that we should always consider when we're creating a button. Let's see. This is a different screen here. More color contrast issues. And yeah, so this is just an example of what the report looks like. As you can see, there's no critical issues here because I scanned one of the default iOS apps. So I would hope there's no critical issues in an app that comes with your phone. So, but we still see some serious issues, some clear false positives, as you can see. But yeah, so you can see a lot of the same errors here: duplicate name, color contrast, tappable area, things like that. So yeah, so I just thought it was very important to show you guys an example of what this events mobile flow analyzer report looks like.
Does this provide like a score?
No, actually, no, it does not provide a score. I'm sure that we can. I mean, I guess technically you can create a score, just depending on how many issues that you found. So, but to me, I think if you have more than one critical issue, I guess it's pretty much a fail, you know. But as I found, sometimes these critical issues are not necessarily critical. We could create a score based on the number of issues that we found. But yeah, that would be nice if events would provide something like that. Because I've used other tools where they give you like an actual score. So
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I've used others as well that do provide you a score where, you know, like critical just drops the score significantly, and then high, you know, drops it a little lower, and then, you know, based on the number of highs that you have versus the number of medium and you know, like number of lows, that would determine, you know, a score, and then you can block you know, an application, or, you know, if you have like a PR and it drops below that minimum score, like let's say you open something that has a critical error, then it might say, okay, well, this is not going to go through because it's below like a score of 80, for example.
yeah, that's a great point. And just thinking out loud, I think currently that would have to be a manual process. So I know we have worked in the past using events during UI testing, and we could technically take the report and then find the number of issues and create our own scoring system. I believe events is still developing new features, so maybe that'll be a new feature that they release pretty soon. So Yeah.
Cool.
Just the last point with events, it's not free, but I think they have a free trial. And yeah, so I just wanted to make that clear. So I just wanted to give you guys just my recommendations now from using events and other auditing tools, because I know there's in my opinion, there's something to consider here, because we don't want to add more overhead, and we want to be able to use this tool to help us and not hurt us. So the first thing I found is that the defects found in the reports are often very, very negative. And I would first recommend to only focus on the critical issues. The serious issues are issues, but also they're not gonna make or break your app. And generally, these auditing tools don't guarantee compliance. They're not gonna fix the problems for you, but they will find every single little issue that you may have. So I can imagine that some, product leads, project managers will see this report and see 80 issues, and they'll think that the app is terrible and everything is bad. So I think that's one thing to consider. Not everything is bad. You should read the actual issue and determine yourself if you are breaking one of the WCAG rules, and then create a bug or defect based on that. So I just thought that was very important. We should not be doing a blind thing and just creating bugs for every single defect we find from the tool. Also, audits are only useful if your accessibility practices are incomplete. And by what I mean by that is that it's only useful using these tools if you already done all of the work with making sure that all of the components and all the elements already check all the things that you already consider. So auditing, I think, is just something you do on top of everything after you already have done your work to make sure everything's accessible. So my last 2 points is just to say, I think Accessibility Inspector should be the main tool that we all use to manually test our app. Like I said before, you can run it just from developer tools and running your app in the iOS simulator. Also, there's no substitution for running your app on a real device and testing it yourself. So install the app on your real device and turn on the voiceover. And that's pretty simple to do. So before I go on, I'll just say you turn on voiceover by going to settings and accessibility. I have a shortcut on my phone. I click the right button 3 times and it turns on voiceover, and that's how I could test accessibility. So that's just something quick. So this is what I recommend most of the time. Using a tool is helpful, but also manually checking that you're doing things the right way is also important. Is most important. So I created a small checklist based on a checklist that we use every day while we're testing at work currently. So I just summarized the main ones that I think are very important. So number 1, have descriptive headings. Make sure you label each of the element as a heading if it is a heading. And I'm sure Ilya will go into that later with actually talking about the accessibility elements. Color contrast and hit targets important. We saw that in the report also. Dark mode, color contrast, test the app in dark mode, and that's pretty much a basic thing you should do. That's, I guess, overlooked quite a bit. So just make sure you go to developer mode and change it to dark mode just to test that the colors they match properly. Make sure the focus moves in logical order from left to right. I see this being a problem more often than not. Just make sure that if there's any issues with the ordering of the elements, make sure that's fixed. Make sure there's no empty elements that gain focus. This is pretty common. I think I made the mistake a lot of times when I first started using SwiftUI, and I put a lot of these views that are empty just as placeholders and things like that. Make sure that you turn the accessibility hidden for those elements so that the user's not focusing on empty elements. Also make sure orientation changes are appropriate. A lot of times, if you switch to landscape, everything gets all messed up, and you should be able to use the app in portrait mode and landscape, and that's definitely an accessibility issue. Display text in bold and larger text, I already talked about this, but make sure that you test that manually. Just go to settings and change the change it to large text and see if everything works properly. Make sure the images are non-actionable. This I've seen a lot too, where a developer creates an image that's actually another type of element, or they want a button, but they'll create an image that's tappable, but the voiceover doesn't know that it's a button. So just make sure the images that are non-actionable, make sure that you set the right accessibility traits for that. And more on that for actionable elements, make sure that it gets announced properly. This is the proper format for announcing these elements. For for a button or anything like that, make sure that it's announced properly. Also for form elements, make sure they have labels. Every element in the form should have labels, and table elements move in logical order. This is pretty important when you see tables in mobile apps, because there's so many columns. You don't want to have the user cycle through each element if they don't have to. Most of the time you want to group each row as its own element, and pretty much you want to be smart about it, and use your intuition, and think as if you are only able to use the app with the voiceover on. So, and then the last point is controlling actual elements using the keyboard. It's something that a lot of developers don't think about. Just being able to control the app with just the keyboard. And that's like the extreme part of it, but just think about that, because some people only use the keyboard to use their mobile app. So, all right, so this is just showing you guys how to turn on VoiceOver. Go to settings, accessibility, and turn on VoiceOver here. And like I said, I have a shortcut on my phone where I click the right button 3 times and it comes up with the VoiceOver on. And my last point, yep, accessibility inspector. If you open up Xcode and open up developer tool, you'll see accessibility inspector right there. And it's very easy to use. You just have to select the target that you're testing, and you could hear the voiceover as if it's you're using voiceover. One note for this, I found that it doesn't always act like a real device. Sometimes there's some operating system error or something like that where there's a known bug for accessibility inspector. So I still recommend testing on a real device. Run your app on your real device and use the voiceover feature to test the user experience while voiceover is on. So
okay, so with that, Elio.
So let's talk about a little bit more about accessibility in the practice, how exactly we should operate in different cases. So it's going to be a small presentation about what we can use, what we have to use, and what kind of issues we're encountering. And then second part of the demo is going to be the code example with the different cases, which we also can play back and forth. Also, I will use the real device with VoiceOver to demonstrate you the common issues. So as the overview, as the BAM said, that accessibility in mobile apps technically means that making them usable by people with disabilities, ensuring inclusivity and compliance with law, as again BAM said, and ethical responsibility. So before we dig in that, what the difference between SwiftUI accessibility and UIKit accessibility? Why is what the difference literally between them? So overall, SwiftUI is the first framework with built-in accessibility features, which will do most of the cases automatically for you. So we call it a declarative approach, when you just describe whatever it should do and a SwiftUI doing for you. So it works for building UI. It's the same way it works for building automation and building accessibility and handle accessibility cases. Versus UI kit, where you have to set it up like the all steps. So implement and manage accessibility features, which is imperative approach. So let's see what we're going to talk about. Accessibility essentials, common issues, or mastery of accessibility, and beyond the basic. Beyond the basic is like pretty new and interesting stuff to learn. So accessibility essentials, most of you probably already saw them. So common usually used accessibility modifiers is accessibility value, where we add the textual description of the value that the view contains. Accessibility label, we will talk more about that. Add label to with the description in content. And accessibility hint. So accessibility hint add the contextual also to element after action. So action happens, and after action we give a hint what happened for user. So they use like pretty often, but modifiers that should be used more often is accessibility sort priority, and we will see why. Accessibility hidden, as I'm saying, it's really a powerful one. Accessibility element, children, contain, and combine, we will discuss different between them. But technically, contain, when we group, let's say, some views, couple of views in a one bucket, but we still accessible all the elements in that bucket, like 10 elements in the bucket, so we'll just contain them together. And the combine, it means we will merge 10 elements in one. So in that case, we will have just one merged element. You can think about it like the, let's say, role, which has a title, which has subtitle, some value, something else. So we just want to combine it as the one rectangle that the user just press on it, and have options to reach only that like rectangle, that row, not the all elements separate. Cool. So common issues or mastery of accessibility. Most of the common issues is accessibility add traits is a button, which we add the trait to specific element. So if you use accessibility add traits, it indicates that you might be making a mistake, because all toggles will say it's toggles, all buttons will say it's buttons, all text will say it's a text. So if you're using the button, but for some reasons you want to say it's an image, that's the like logical things you have to think more about. Should I do like right or not? Also, labels, accessibility labels should only be applied to actual labels. But for certain cases, we have a superior approach. Instead of overriding accessibility, because what technically label do? Label override existing accessibility. We can replace it with specifically like new accessibility, and I will demonstrate it shortly. So I will not explain right now solutions. We will just see it during the code process. So beyond the basic, we will talk about, I will show you how to work with the canvas, because technically canvas is a new way to draw like different graphs on the UI, and it don't has any accessibility. So to address that, we can utilize accessibility label to create element, and then to reach each element in that new created voiceover element or like accessibility element. We can use accessibility children, which is like also new one, to establish accessibility elements with the canvas. This allows voiceover users to navigate inside the canvas. So inside the like any drawing you like, any diagram you want to create, access information for let's say like each week or like the each day, depends on the different duration, whatever you want to show it. So what it does, it's replace the existing accessibility children with one or more new synthetic accessibility elements. So I will show how it works. Also, I just want to mention that accessibility children will replace, not the create new element, which is also important, because if canvas don't have any accessibility, it's nothing to replace. So in that case, I will show you how to handle that. And the rotors. So what the rotors does, so long story short, it allows you to mark important elements and give you ability to versus swiping back and forth. So swiping back and forth with the voiceover give you ability to go for each, right? Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So just navigate between like the all elements. So the rotors will give you ability using swipe up and down, which will, well, technically for scrolling. So rotor will navigate through the only important things like work email, home email, and will skip the others. If it activated, I also show you how to set it up. So that was the all the chapters, and let's jump into the code. So let me make it a bit bigger. Cool. So we have a couple elements. We have activity card view, which is these 3 cards. We have gross graph view, which is this one. We have button, delete button. It has a label, it has an image, and we have a rotor. I'm going to show you a bit later. So this is the rotor system, how it's going to work, rotor example navigation. So let's turn on voiceover and see what we have so far, because right now everything looks fine. Turn on voiceover.
Sorry, I can't help you with that.
That's frustrating. Turn on voiceover.
Okay, voiceover is now on.
That's better. So let's try to
SwiftUI accessibility demo. Accessibility demo. Heading.
all right. Let me know if you can hear that. Yeah, cool. Awesome. So now I will navigate just swiping back and forth and show you how the people with disabilities, with eye disabilities, will interact with this view. So I start to navigating.
Accessibility person. Image. Ed Edginson 1. N. Johnson. Person. Image. Person. Do.
Now it's the first issue. I have 3 different cards, but voiceover going after the N. Johnson name, it's jumping to another card. So that's the issue number 1. Which
may check person. Image. Person. Do.
Also probably person, do, personal image, not really needed for voiceover. So let's go next. We have already 2
bugs. User David book status up like
yeah,
like comment left button.
Again, we have a problem because it's just jumping back and forth between different cards, which is not what we're looking for. So this is the activity card view. Let's go to next one, which is growth.
Percentages of growth.
All right, it says percentages of growth, but it will be nice if it says that it's header or so. Let's go next.
Trash button.
Okay, 2 issues right away. First of all, it's just jump. It's a jump from the percentages of growth to the button, and it skipped completely the gross graph view. So it's not reachable right now because it was built with the canvas. Also, as you may know, let me just click one more time.
Trash button.
That's cool, but as I see here, it should be like label, not the trash. It's also a problem. So we will try to address it right now. Let's go inside the activity card view and see what's happened there. So first of all, we have a text like username. It says like N Johnson 1 or something else, user 1. We can say that we don't really want to work with that. Also with the image, so we don't need accessibility concentrate on image. We don't need accessibility concentrate on the name. We can move that, but before we move that, let's do, for example, we can do like the combine like all of them together as the one element. But before it, let's go right on the bottom of the element and says, all right, because the issue, let me just show you one more time.
N Johnson, at an edge, and person, image, person, do.
So after name is jumping on the other card, but we want to go further with the status update with the all buttons, and then if the user wants to interact with the other cards, he will navigate there. So in that case, we need say contain. So we want to contain all of these elements in one bucket. Let's try to build it now.
Utilities, heading,
Yeah, nice.
accessibility demo, heading,
Let's see what happened.
accessibility,
Up, one moment.
percentages of accessible person, at an edge and Johnson, status update, like, comment left, button, person, image,
All right.
person, do.
Main issue fixed. Right now it's a container for the specific element. So each element going to be a container. That's cool. We don't want to combine it because if we will combine it, everything going to be one element. But we still have like the status update and different buttons. I want to click thumbs up. I want to like left the feedback. So it's not really efficient for us. We will not do combine. Let's see what we can do more. We can say like hidden something, but before that, we can also say priority, because how important be to first element, let's say be a name, and then everything else, right? So let's try to do that.
Utilities, heading,
Yeah, thank you. So
accessibility demo, accessibility and Johnson. Person, at an status update.
cool. So Ann Johnson right now, the name is the first priority, which is really cool. So let's just see what we can do. If we will combine it, what's going to happen? So we will combine
Utilities,
top.
heading,
We will combine top of the element.
accessibility demo, and Johnson, at an Edginson 1, status update.
Cool. It says Ann Johnson, says the agency one, says status update. But technically, username as the like NA engines, whatever, user can create a bunch of the really funny names, and sometimes we don't want to like really hear them, or user should not like hear them, whatever. The name is like pretty much fine. Even let's say if it's a different, I mean, it can be different chats, whatever. So we can also hide that. And the
Utilities, heading,
let's say the
double
end result.
SwiftUI accessibility. Make comment left, button, access, and Johnson, status update.
Awesome. That's what we're looking for. We says Ann Johnson, we says status update, and then through the navigation, we will see.
May check, comment like, and John like, may check like, comment David like, comment left, button.
Awesome. Cool. So we fixed everything. It's not like the whole element, but it's not the merged element, but it contained element, which we have at top. And we also hide some elements. We also add the priority to use some of them if we want to. And this element is done. Cool. What else? Then we go to our gross graph view. Let's see what we have here. So that's the view. We use the canvas. So how we will operate here? First, we can add the header. Says that the percentages of growth is a header. The second one, we're gonna use, so set a label for canvas. This makes the entire view an accessible element, visible voiceover. So this is like the really interesting one. Right now, let me just show you. So adding label, we create element. So right now it's no accessible element. After creating the label, we say that this one, it's a big element. So let's see how it works.
Utilities, heading. SwiftUI accessibility percentages of gross, heading. Comment left, percentage, lines of code bar graph.
Lines of code bar graph. All right. Now VoiceOver can focusing on that element, which is good. So what we can do next? Next, we can make accessibility children. So what it does, one more time, accessibility children will sort of replace, but not replace, it will make accessible accessible elements, like sort of the accessible children inside this element. So we're adding more children. So let's say we have element, but we, in the previous example, we have a lot of elements. They was already exist, voiceover elements, accessibility elements. We contain them in the bucket. So what happened right now, we have a bunch of the elements, but we don't have bucket, we don't have accessibility elements. So by that, we're creating sort of one object. And by adding the accessibility children, we're sort of creating specific voiceover bucket. It will be not visible, but sort of hearable only for voiceover. So these view stuff, this like the edge stack for each rectangle, it will not be visible, but it will be works only for voiceover group. So we're creating specific bucket, and then we say what voiceover should read from that bucket, sort of creating specific architecture for voiceover. So in that case, we say, all right, we also use the for each lines. We take them here, and then we say, all right, so first, let's use like the label, and label gonna be week by index. So we take them from here. That's how we create the week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5. And then we take the lines indexes, which is in percentages. It's calculating right here, lines indexes, which is like 30, 12, whatever. Also, we create the rectangle to focusing on the specific elements. So let me build it and see what happens.
Utilities, heading. Double. SwiftUI accessibility percentages of gross, heading.
Now I will swipe as any user with the disabilities will do, and we see what happened.
Lines of code bar graph. Week 1, 30%. Week 2, 12%. Week 3, 2%. Week 4, 34%. Week 5, 50%.
All right, we handle it by the accessibility children and creating specific structure just for voiceover. That's cool. Let's do the next one. What happened with the next one?
Trash button.
All right, but it's not the trash button, right? It's delete button. So let's go inside, see what we can do here. No doubt we can do just the label. So the label is delete, or like the pasting label, but it has like the more efficient way to do so. So in a button style, we use the custom button style. Let's see what happened inside there. So symbol button style should conform to button style protocol. And the button style protocol has the parameter configuration, which is make body, with configuration, which are property of the button, self-configuration. That's cool. So that's what we can use. So versus, I just want to show you that. I will show you later why the label is not applicable here. So versus that, we say we don't want to overwrite existing accessibility because it's already says it's a trash button, but we want to say, let's replace it. So erased and create a new one. And we do just configuration as we have from the protocol, and we say label. In that case, it will read any label we put for the button. Doesn't matter what kind of image we use, because in that case, by default, image name of the image will override that accessibility. So let me build it.
Utilities,
and you will hear what happened.
SwiftUI accessibility demo. Accessibility demo. Heading. Delete button.
Cool. Now it's fixed delete button. So let me show you why if approach with the replacing over the overriding says nothing for us. Accessibility label just can be applied in this case also, because button style configuration label conform to string protocol. Cool. Also, let me show you if we do the we can add value and we can add the heat. So you can see like
utilities.
Just want to show you
heading.
the order, how, like, in which order it's used.
SwiftUI accessibility demo. Accessibility demo. Heading.
Also, I just want to mention that doesn't matter which modifier used by the order. So if you put the accessibility hint or if you put the accessibility value, it doesn't matter. It will still read first the label, then it will put the value, and after action, since hint lets you know what happened. So technically,
Utility.
yeah, technically better way says here is like item was replaced. So let me build it.
Accessibility demo. Heading. Delete. Needs for remove items. Button. Item was replaced.
That's how it works with the order of the simple accessibility modifiers. Cool. Next one is the rotor. So let me just jump into that show you what we have there. So we have navigation link. Yeah, so this is the body of the rotor view. We're using the accessibility rotor. We put the name. It can be any name. That name will display on your rotor when you will try to activate it. Then we have entries, and then entered by the label. So if we go in the entries, that's how the model was set. So we say we have like some values. For example, it's still like brute force, but it's like how it can be works. I'll set it up. We say that the work email, kids, school, and the home email is the important elements or like important messages. It also can be like high jump of the stock. It can be like real low something or some news from specific company. I just want to like that, let's say this person with disabilities can navigate through the all information to just get this specific from the news information from specific companies. Or even they sort them. So let's say specific news from the like companies he set it up. So we have a flag, rotor is rotor entry. It's here filtered by rotor entry. So what it does, let me just show you. We go into
stack rotor button. 1.
Cool.
Use the rotor to access demo accessibility rotor.
So it says that it's already used. Let me try to show you how to activate it. So you put 2 fingers and you like sort of like the rotor, like swipe it back and forth.
Caret demo accessibility rotor. Headings. Demo accessibility rotor.
Cool. By default, it has a couple rotors like the heading or so it can jump between like headings. In our case, we have a custom one. So if I will swipe back and forth, it will show you like regular navigation, default navigation between the objects one by one.
2. Work 4. Kid 6. Kid 4. Work 2. 1.
And if I will swipe up and down, it will jump between our elements with a flag.
Work email. Kids school. Home email. Kids school. Work email.
That's how the rotors can be set up and can work.
Accessibility demo. Heading.
Thank you. Turn off voiceover.
Voiceover off.
Awesome. So now let's just recap. First, we have a couple cards, which is also, let me just go through. So each card, they're going through the for each. So in that case, we want to make sure like encapsulate each card as the separate element. In that case, we were used accessibility contain that the focus will jump to another card only after the last component or view in that combined like view. Also, we hidden couple elements, we combine top of that element. So that was like our modifications. Again, we just modified a bit how to read and how the focus will move. we didn't touch anything. So all buttons says it's a buttons, and like the text is a text, and name is name. Cool. With the graph, we built from ground zero accessibility children stack. So it's hierarchy specifically for VoiceOver. In that case, VoiceOver will go through that information to focusing inside the graph. And again, just because the canvas isn't accessibility by default, so it's it's unreachable for VoiceOver. Then we go through the custom button and says that, hey, during the putting the label, we can use a specific like symbol button style, and it has the button style protocol, which has the make body property, and we can take that configuration from make body property and put the label, so it will read every time on the label, doesn't matter what kind of image you will put there. We'll also talk about the order, in which order it will work. So technically label going to be first, and then value, and after action you can put the hint to user what was just happens right now. And we will discuss about the rotors, how to like put the rotors, and how the rotors works, and why it's so important to provide extra functionality to people with disabilities to navigate between very important data versus the regular data or regular navigation. Yep, that's it, I believe. And let me know if you have any questions.
Ilya, I had one question that was sort priority, the order. I think it starts from 1, right? Not 0, 1, 2, that it goes on like that.
So 1 is the first priority.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, 1 versus 0. So yeah, let me see. Really quick, let's jump there. It was here, I believe.
Let's try it.
I mean, yeah, we can put like the verses, and let me remove that one. Let me put this, and also
So which one should be 0?
oh, wait, hold on. So in that case, 0 gonna be the name. Okay. Versus image or username. Hold on. Turn on VoiceOver. No, not really. Turn on VoiceOver.
Okay. VoiceOver is now on.
Accessibility at an Edginson 1.
So as you can see, let me see. That's interesting.
Person, image, person, N. Johnson, status update, N. Johnson. Status update, lines of code bar, accessibility at an Edginson 1.
So right now, yeah. Right now, highest number is go first.
Person, image, N. Johnson.
So it's a different things as we do for mocks. Priority 1, it means it's going to be after 0 and before 2. So if I put, let's say, 5, 6, 7, it's going to be an Anderson Johnson. Then it's going to be the username and image. Oh no, hold on. The image is going to be first. Image, the name, then email. Let's just try one time.
Utilities, heading. Double accessibility, person, image, person,
So,
do. N. Johnson at an Edginson 1.
cool.
Higher the
Yeah.
number, the higher the priority.
Yes. Answer your question. Highest number, highest priority. Cool, cool. Thanks, Rahid, for question.
Thank you. That looked interesting.
Yeah.
Utilities, heading.
Yeah, and Apple does provide a lot of out of the box accessibility, setup, right? But where do you feel, Ilya, is, the most where you have to manually add a lot of the accessibility items?
So that's the case. We technically, in our mind, we can split it on two logical groups. Groups number one, when we have to override whatever it has or modify it. Because during the priority, we just modified what can be read first. If we put the container, we just said, again, we put the order, read these elements and read that elements. It's a one thing. When we use the completely, like replacement, completely replacements, it's a different things, but again, it's for the custom elements. So these examples we just discussed, they're really most of the troubleshoot places, most of the painful places where you have like really custom element, the default accessibility already is not working and you have to replace it. But again, from the example I just show, when we work with the cards, all the cards has default accessibility. We just say, could you read this element first and could you not read this element, and just like combine this together. So technically it's already a lot of stuff for free. You need just like the market more user friendly or like understandable. Yep.
Thanks, Nader. That was really impressive. I first of all want to thank you all for participating, and special thanks to all the presenters, Nader, Bam, Ilya, Hamid, Michael, and I know several other members of iOS practice at InRhythm have been involved into putting this workshop together. An excellent job hosting it. I personally enjoyed this workshop a lot. I hope all of you enjoyed this experience as well. And today's workshop was a part of the InRhythm Technology Summit for summer 2023, which included a series of hands-on interactive coding workshops on some of the latest technology trends. And there is a lot of work that went into creating these workshops, and all of them will be available for your learning on LinkedIn as well as InRhythm's YouTube channel. So please check that out. And to those who are new to InRhythm, we are a modern product and technology consulting firm, and we help large financial enterprises with their digital transformation journeys, and we'll be happy to help you out with your iOS modernization needs. You can find our contact details on our website. And if you're interested in continuing learning with us, we also have a lot of exciting lightning talks lined up for you in the upcoming weeks. Every Thursday at 5:15 p.m. Eastern time, we host these lightning talks, and each week our practice area consultant, they share their knowledge on these evolving trends in the industry. This week, Eric Makatoma, who is a front-end web engineer with us, is going to give a lightning talk on Remix. Remix is a full-stack web framework that lets you focus on the user interface, and it helps you deliver a fast, slick, and resilient user experience. So I'm really looking forward to this talk. Make sure all of you mark your calendar for this. You can follow it on LinkedIn, or you can reach out to us if you want a Zoom link for that. Thank you all once again for joining. Have a wonderful evening, and I'll see you on Thursday evening.
Thanks, Parag. And just real quickly, I do want to echo, a little bit of what you said. There was a lot of work that went in, and we have a lot of really passionate engineers who really are eager and want to teach, and a lot of which don't want to do things the easy way, but want to do things the right way. So if there's anything specific that anyone wants to learn more about, this is something that we have been doing and we want to continuously do. We are going to have another iOS workshop within the next few months. So if there's any specific topic that anyone is interested in, let us know, and then we will assess it, and we will work on working on those demos. A special thank you to Josh. He didn't present today, but he put a lot of work and effort in helping making this workshop a success. So thank you, Josh, Michael, Ilya, Bam, Hamid, and everyone who participated. I really appreciate it. And yeah, have a great rest of the day.